So here's an observation that perhaps some more experienced beekeepers would be able to confirm. This is a 5-frame medium box, and you can see there's a bunch of bees just clustering to it. It's the stragglers from a colony that I moved yesterday. And that colony is right there. So this hive was set up in another bee yard, and I had to move it in the back of my Honda Fit. And I couldn't pick the whole hive up by myself. I took the top box off, and it was just a honey box, and I put it aside. And then I had the 2 bottom boxes, the 2 mediums down there, left over, and I put the top cover on it, and I sealed them in, and I put a ratchet strap around it, and I picked it up, and I put it in the back of my Honda Fit. Then I was still left with this honey super, and I was just going to leave the honey super around just to pick up the stragglers, all the foragers that were out. But I said, hey, why not? Why don't we just take that too? So I sealed that box up and brought that with me too. So basically, to move the hive, I just split it up into 2 boxes in 1 box. All the bees sealed in, and put them in the back of my Honda Fit. But this is in the middle of the day, and a whole lot of foragers were out collecting honey and nectar, or nectar and pollen. So what am I going to do? So what I did is I took this 5-frame medium box. I didn't have any real drawn comb or anything like that, but I did have a frame of an old frame of honey. So I smacked the whole frame of honey, the old frame of honey in the middle, and I put 2 frames of just foundation on the sides. And there's a big hole right here that you can't see. And I just taped some corrugated plastic to the top of it because I didn't have a top. I weighed it down with a big rock to keep it sealed in. And that's it. All the foragers came back, and I put it back in the original location of the hive, and all the foragers came back, and they were a little confused, but eventually they all went inside. And I don't know what they're doing, but they're completely queenless, completely broodless, completely everything, but they do have a bit of honey in there, and they all came back to their location that they were homed in on, and they all went into this box. And I came here this morning to pick them up, and there they are. This is exactly what I saw. So I sealed up the hole. There's a little thing here for sealing up the hole, so the bees that are still in there are still in there. But the bees that were bearding on the outside, I guess it's all crowded on the inside, are just holding on to the hive like this. So that's the story behind it, but this is my observation. I just picked these bees up, just like this, and put them in the back of my car, and they stayed on the box. They didn't fly away. Normally when I transport any kind of a nuke or small hive or anything, and there's a few stragglers on the outside trying to get in or whatever, they usually fly up against the windows of my car, and they fly around. Or if there's a little crack in the hive, like a little hole or something like that, and like duct tape hole that they got out of, they come out of the hole. These bees aren't doing that. They're holding on to the hive for dear life, almost as if their queen is gone, their colony is gone, all their buddies are gone, and they're feeling insecure, and they're just holding on to this location because they don't know what else to do. There's nothing keeping them there. The queen's pheromones aren't there. There's no open brood pheromone. There's no smell or associations with their original colony. So they're just in this box. And I just picked them up and put them in a car. And they just stayed there. And that doesn't usually happen, at least when I transport hives like this. If I ever saw anything like this, I would just think, okay, well, they're getting out. Or they're going to be all over the car. And I put on my bee suit while driving home with this in anticipation that they were going to be flying everywhere, and they didn't. They just stuck. They just held tight. I don't think I've really seen that before. I've sort of seen it a little bit, but usually there's like, this many bees. They're going to be flying, and they're not. They're holding tight to this basically empty box, and that's interesting. It's sort of like, why are they doing that? Why aren't they just going crazy? If this was their regular colony, if it was in this hive, they would have been flying out. I know that I would have had bees flying out of the hive. If there was any kind of bees on the outside or anything, they just would have been in the air. But these bees are holding tight. Maybe that's probably something that migratory beekeepers would know about. But it's not something that I see too often, because most of the time when I've moved my hives, it's been, I've just got them in the back of my car. I've got the mesh over the entrance, or I got everything blocked up. Maybe if I just kept the entrances open, they wouldn't fly, but I think they would. I'm pretty sure they would. But anyway, I don't know what that is, but they don't have anything in this box that smells like home, and they're just holding tight, and there's almost like they're insecure and don't know what to do, so they're just sitting there. I'm attributing human qualities to the bees, but that's how I'm explaining it. But anyway, I don't know what that is, but there you go. So they're holding tight. All right, there we go. I got the hole open. And you can see they're still just holding on tight. And they're not stingy. They're not trying to be defensive. They're almost behaving like a swarm. You know, if you get a swarm in a tree, you can just stick your hand right into it. But anyway, so they're in there. And this is their original colony down there. So hopefully they will reintegrate easily, even though they've only been away from each other for less than a day. But right now it's still early in the morning and none of the bees are flying. But once it warms up and these bees start flying, I'll just open up the box, I guess, and let them find their way back to their new home. Anyway, things you do as a beekeeper. I've been thinking about this recently, how beekeeping is a constant task of finding practical solutions to weird problems and doing it in a timely manner. And if you don't have that inclination, like I am the least practical person I know. I can't build anything. I can't hammer a nail without hitting my thumb. Thinking practically just doesn't come naturally to me, but I've developed the skill, I guess, over the years. But if you don't have that capacity or that tendency or that ability to think practically about what you're doing with the bees and what they do, then you're probably not going to get the hang of this beekeeping thing. I think that's so much of what it is. It's like it's not constant work, but it's timely work that requires realistic thinking. Let's say, okay, the bees are going to do this, and I need to do this with them. How are they going to react? And you got to think things through, and you have to solve problems immediately. And a part of that is understanding things like this and working with it and going, okay, well, they're doing this now, and they're doing that now. Just all these little pieces of the beekeeping puzzle, they come together with the right attitude. Like, you can put the pieces together when you take the right approach. When you're dedicated enough to say, okay, I need to do this and I need to do it now. And moving these bees was like tricky. Like, look at what I had to do. I had to do all this. I had to move this 3 medium hive by myself and find a way to get these stragglers home. And I did it in the middle of the day. And it's not the ideal way of doing things, but sometimes, especially if you're a solo beekeeper like me, you need to get creative in the way you approach things and do things that are sort of off the books sometimes. And this probably is a little bit off the books, but I got her done. Even though this could lead to disaster, this may not work. There might be something about this whole scenario that could backfire on me. I think it's that willingness to just, hey, let's go for it, and maybe make mistakes, and just admit to failure and admit to making mistakes. You're going to learn from it. This is how you get good at it, and this is how I think you hone your practical tendencies, your practical mindedness. Yeah, the crows have noticed me. Anyway, that's my lecture for today, my big thought for today. I don't know where it's going, but there you go. So this colony, it's a 3 medium colony. And look at this. Look at this. This is a thing in Newfoundland, or at least in Flat Rock. Big, massive slugs just trying to get into my hives. And I think going forward, look at them all. Oh, there's one. There's another one. There's another one. And yeah, they don't mind getting inside hives. I've got another location where the hives are just full of snails. You go inside after the winter, and there's just snails, like actual snails with hard snail shells, living inside the hives. It doesn't seem to bother the bees, but it's strange. I could spray the area with vinegar, but I don't. Anyway, you can see now they're already starting to fly around a bit. It's getting warm. There's going to be another hot, humid day. It's curious how they're just holding on tight like that. Almost as if they've already been moved. You know, sometimes when you move a hive into a completely different location, they don't fly. They just hold tight. And then it warms up, and then they fly, and then they start to orient and stuff like that. But I don't know, these are all foragers too. So it's really, I don't know, I'm not sure how exactly to analyze this, but that's another thing about beekeeping. You're a detective. Put on your Columbo hat and give it a go. Try to figure stuff out. It's fun. And not knowing all the answers is fine too, because you can just sit here and wonder what's going on and be fascinated. embrace the mystery. And yet you don't need to know everything to appreciate it and to just keep the bees alive and to do well by the bees, I think there's a tendency to go a little overboard and to take almost an aggressive approach to our beekeeping when really there's a middle way that isn't obsessive, but it's not lazy and inattentive either. You can just find your place. And look at that. So I'm really curious. Like, I want to open this box up, and this is a really slapped together thing. You can see there's a big crack right there. But if you look under, it looks like the whole thing is full of bees. You can see the bees just sort of poking their heads up, going, "Hey, what's going on?" Right? But they can't get out. I'm curious if that whole thing is full of bees, because that was basically, there's a 3 medium colony in the middle of the day. Most of the foragers were out. How many foragers? This is a great measurement of how many foragers are in a typical 3 medium colony, perhaps. I'm really curious to see how this turns out, to see how many bees are actually in this hive, and what they've done with all that empty space in there. There's only a piece of honeycomb in the middle, and then just an empty foundation on the sides. So, but they're holding tight. And then right now, I think this is the other portion of the colony and they don't have any foragers, or if they do, there's not many. So hopefully they got through the night, keeping the brood warm, even without all those bodies in the hive. Again, maybe I made a mistake, stupid thing to do. We're gonna find out though.